Well, hi folks, how y'all doing there? It's been quite some time since I've uploaded a video on YouTube here, and I figured I'm due to upload a new one right now, so that's what I'm going to do. And the topic of this video is going to be the RMS Titanic and the circumstances that involve her sinking that I find to be very strange, very odd, and too coincidental to be a coincidence. First thing I'm going to discuss in this video is a novel that was written in the year 1898. This novel was written by a man named Morgan Robertson. And the title of this novel was Futility. And Futility is a novel that takes place, for the first half of the novel, it takes place on the ship called the Titan, which is viewed as being this master ship, a genius creation. And it's also deemed as being unsinkable. And the story follows a character named John Rowland. John Rowland is a guy he's a former naval officer, and he's been let go by the Navy, and now he's working as a deckhand on the Titan, and he's going through a real bad time. He's become an alcoholic, he's depressed, and he's just trying to move on. He's having a tough time. But anyhow, the Titan strikes an iceberg, sinks in the ocean on an April night, and that happens in the first half of the novel. In the second half, after the ship sinks, it turns into an adventure novel. The character of Roland, he goes off and saves this girl. Then there's a part in the novel where he goes on this iceberg and has this fight with this polar bear. And so you can see how not all of it mirrors reality, but you can certainly see how some of it obviously does mirror reality. And that is, of course, the part with the Titan, the iceberg, and the sinking of the Titan on an April night. And of course, the fact that everybody thinks that the Titan is unsinkable. Much like another ship that would set sail in the year 1912, several years after Futility was written and published. Okay, so that being said, we have what's depicted in the novel Futility. Fast forward to 1912. In 1912, you have the RMS Titanic on her maiden voyage. Of course, the Titanic has a glamorous reputation at this time as being just a masterful watercraft, a ship that is unsinkable, a ship that's just state-of-the-art for the time. So we all know this. This is all just background. But we also have this. Take this into account as well. Excuse me. We have the fact that we have three of the richest men in the world on board the Titanic during her maiden voyage. And these individuals were John Jacob Astor, who was the richest man in the world at the time, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus. And by today's standards, each of these men would be worth $11 billion. Not 11 million, 11 billion. And the common thread with these three guys, despite the fact that they all were filthy rich and they all were on board Titanic, all three of these men opposed the establishment of the Federal Reserve. All three of them did. Okay. Titanic sank in April of 1912. Alright, what happened 1 year after Titanic sank? Which would be 100 years ago exactly. Well, not exactly, but to this year, 100 years ago. Well, in 1913, the United States Federal Reserve was established. Alright? So take this into account, and the fact that these three men, Guggenheim, Straus, and Astor, all heavily opposed the formation of the Federal Reserve. Alright, so we have this here too, okay? Take Futility, the novel written in 1898 by Morgan Robertson. Fast forward to 1912. We see the similarities here. Alright, we also have the fact that these three men were some of those most powerful men, some of the most, some of the wealthiest men in the world at the time, and they were all on the Titanic. So if you ask me, this seems kind of strange. We have this novel written several years beforehand, in 1898. We have the Titanic in 1912. and we have these striking similarities. The ship in the book Futility is called Titan. In real life, the ship is Titanic. The Titan strikes an iceberg and sinks in the ocean on a cold April night. The Titanic strikes an iceberg, sinks in the ocean on a cold April night. Alright? So we have these coincidences and these strange conveniences for a third party that may or may not be controlling the puppets here. But we also have the fact that the crew of the Titanic had received several ice warnings of hazardous conditions with icebergs and what have you, but they ignored these warnings that they received, and they just went full ahead. And we also have the fact that not enough lifeboats were placed upon the deck. All right, and of course, it was a tragedy. Thousands of people perished on the cold night of April 14th and the early morning hours of April 15th, 1912. And to me, this all is very strange. Not enough lifeboats. They've been receiving ice warnings for the past few days, but they ignore them and go straight ahead into the ice fields, get struck by an iceberg. And then, of course, we have the 3 richest men in the world on board who all oppose the establishment of the Federal Reserve, which was established 1 year later. So take in the book, Morgan Robertson's book Futility, which is the tale of John Rowland and the Titan. Take into reality the Titanic being struck by an iceberg and sinking in the ocean, and John Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim, and how they all were opposed to having a Federal Reserve, and how in 1913 the Federal Reserve was established. Seems a little too iffy to be true, I know, but think about that. And I'm not saying anything is a fact, I'm just putting out a potential theory. And I'm going to leave it up to you to judge whether you think something was going on behind the scenes or not. Because I'm still deliberating on whether there was a true puppet master pulling the strings here or not. But I just want to throw that out there to the community out there, and I want to hear your thoughts and your feedbacks. You can be as mean as you want, be as nasty as you want, I don't care. I got thick skin. But I just want to get that out there, my thoughts and my dialogues about the Titanic and possible strange circumstances that surround it. So, I'm out. I'll see you all later. Have a good one.